Good day, everybody. Thanks for coming back for another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing this Grizaye Art Kit from Color Pencil Magazine. If you're unfamiliar with what Color Pencil Magazine is, it's a wonderful magazine that I've gotten for quite a long time, and it's full of information about color pencil. You can read about other artists and different projects that are going on in the color pencil world. It's a really interesting magazine. If you haven't gotten it, you should definitely check it out. Color Pencil Magazine's chief editor, Sally Robertson, created a product called Grizaye. It's based off the word Grizaille, G-R-I-S-A-I-L-L-E, the art term for gray. It's a French word. And what it is it's actually a painting technique where you color over top of a grayscaled image. So anyways, they were looking for people to review this art product. They sent me one of their Grizaye art kits. This one is the pink Peony, and I'm going to review that for you all today. So this is the Color Pencil Magazine. This is their spring edition. So sometimes send little freebies in their subscriptions, and this edition came with a Grizaye Country White charcoal paper, which is a Legion product, Legion papers, and I have not heard of this one yet. I haven't used it. It feels very smooth, and it feels very similar to the Legion Stonehenge paper that this particular art kit is actually made on, which we will talk about that later. This is just a small sample of their paper that they are recommending for charcoal. Inside the package, it looks like they gave me a little marketing card displaying some of their products on their website. They included a nice little greeting letter with all the items that are included in the art kit, as well as a small description of what exactly their Grizaye art kit is. The description states, and I quote, "Create these beautiful pink peonies by drawing directly on top of the Grizaye image for complete coverage with 12 color matched pencils. This will not only help you to produce a beautiful finished drawing, but will help you to improve your colored pencil techniques for drawing petals, water drops, leaves, and more." In the kit, it includes one Grizaye image on an 8.5 by 11. That's a decently large size. On Legion Stonehenge warm white paper, one royalty-free photo reference, 3 close-up photos, a color guide, a step-by-step instruction, pencil sharpener, pencil case, Grizaye sticker, 12 Grizaye Velvet Touch colored pencils. And just note, these are oil-based colored pencils after I did a little bit of research. A closing statement of just thank you for reviewing the Grizaye art kit. And I look forward to hearing my feedback. Well, I look forward to giving you my feedback. The packaging of the art kit looks beautiful. The images are very, very crisp. The colors look nice and vibrant. It looks very professional. It looks like a very good quality art kit, and I'm very excited to open this up and see what's inside. So opening up the pencil case, they give you a scratch piece of the Legion Stonehenge warm white paper, which I have never used. So this will be a very interesting experiment. They also included a small sharpener and a Grizaye sticker as well. Okay, here is the Grizaye image of the pink peony. You can see that it is an exact copy of the photograph, the reference photo, and it's just grayscaled on top of the Legion Stonehenge paper. It's very smooth, so I am a little nervous about coloring on smooth paper. Full disclosure, I color on pastel matte most of the time, so I'm going from a background where I like to draw on extremely textured paper to something that's very smooth. So this will be a little bit of a learning curve for me, as I'm going to have to change my techniques a little bit. I understand a lot of people really like this paper for color pencil. I've not used it, but I see a lot of really good work done on it, so I'm very excited to try a new paper as well as a new art kit. So here's the color guide. They have given you a reference of numbers associated with their colors to where they belong on the image itself. So that makes it very easy to understand what colors go where, and so on and so forth. So this is the reference image. Gosh, that is such a beautiful peony. That is just such a great reference photo. So on the back, there is an up-close version. So you can get 2 different zoomed in photos. This is also a royalty-free photo. All the photos taken for the Grizaye color kits are taken by Sally Robertson, which I think is really cool, and she gives permission to use them for sale or for personal use or for commercial use, although you can't take her photo and say that it's yours. When I work with my students, I always tell them that they need to have a high quality reference photo to work from if they're going for realism, because you're going to be able to see all those details that you need. So this is definitely going to be a challenging picture. This image is very busy. There's a lot of texture. There's a lot of details in it. The bokeh background is very interesting to me. I've never done one before, so it'll be fun to kind of experiment with that and play with that kind of a technique. On the back of that same sheet, you can see the step-by-step instructions. I'm going to slowly go over each section so you can read it, but you can follow along with the pictures just to kind of get an idea of where they're going to be taking you through each section of the drawing. You can also go to their website, which they offer a 2-hour tutorial, and actually watch someone go through this whole drawing so you can get more information that way if you need a little bit more help. Okay. Let's jump into testing out these pencils. So I'm going to first start off by seeing how good their sharpener is. I don't really use a lot of hand sharpeners as it tends to break the lead quite a bit, and as you can see, these already kind of broke the tip. So a lot of times when your pencils break, that can happen during shipping, or if the core of the pencil is not bonded with the wood, it will also be more apt to breaking. So I will be opting to use my electric sharpener, which I use most of the time for my other pencils. I wanted to see if the white would show up on the paper, which didn't, which I'm not surprised. But I'm just going to go down the line and write out each one with its number that it's associated with. As I'm swatching out the colors, I noticed that they are nice and smooth. They're very buttery feeling. They remind me a lot of Prismacolors in a way. As per their website, they can't speak to the light fastness of them. I don't believe that they have done any testing on that, which means that these are not light fast, or likely not. They do mention on their website that they are confident that you will find them similar to other color pencils at this price point. I looked into what their set of color pencils cost on their shop, and they're around the $50, $60 range, so more of a budget-friendly set of color pencils. In the directions on how to use the pencils, they do recommend a colorless blender or odorless mineral spirits. So I'm going to be using odorless mineral spirits. I use Gamsol for when I'm typically working with color pencils. Gamsol is a solvent that will work on this paper. They do say not to use Holbein melts. I'm not sure what happens to the paper when you do that, but they say that one is to be avoided. So here I am just adding a few layers together. I'm using the green and the yellow, and I just want to see how nicely they blend together, how well the pigment melts from the solvent, if I'm able to get good coverage with the first few layers. The pigment still seems to be very grainy. The paper doesn't really seem to want to let it sort of flow. It definitely does have quite a different feel than pastel matte does. Okay, there is the finished result of the blending test. What do you think? I also want to compare them to see how they work on pastel matte as well. I'll be honest, working on smooth paper, I don't get that immediate nice laydown of pencil that I can get on pastel matte. So I want to do a side-by-side comparison between the artist grade pencils that I use. I understand that these are not artist grade pencils, but I just wanted to see the difference between the two. And again, I know there's really not much of a comparison. The Grizaye pencils are obviously a more budget-friendly pencil, so they're going to be more of a student grade versus the Luminance and the Polychromos, which perform a lot better. But for budget-friendly pencils, these aren't too bad. I definitely would prefer to use them on a much more rough textured paper than the smoother Legion paper that I'll be working on today. Okay, so getting started, the directions say I need to use the raw umber and the sunburst to trace the darkest areas in the center of the peony, and then use the white and yellow on top of that. So I am starting off with using the raw umber, and then I'll be going into the yellow sunburst on top and then using the white. So now I'm going over the first layer that I've done with my solvent. Immediately I'm noticing that the paper and the pencils are really kind of working against me at this point. They aren't blending very well on this paper. They definitely blended better on the pastel matte, but I know that this is a new kind of paper for me, so I am just not really familiar with it, so maybe I'm just not using it properly, but I am noticing that the pencils are not blending very well, so it is a little bit of a struggle at this point. Okay, so on to the next part where I'm going to be adding purples, blues, pinks, and whites to the petals. And as per the directions, it just says add blue, yellow, and purple where tones apply. So I used the purples and the blues for the darker areas, and then I went on top with the pinks and the whites and just tried to blend the best I could and leaving the white of the paper for the brightest highlights. So I've been working with the pencils on the petals and the background for a couple hours now, and I can't seem to get over that these pencils just don't like to layer. I am using very light pressure and going over the areas multiple times like I usually do with my color pencil technique. They don't really like to blend, so I was really fighting it. And at this point I said heck with it, and I swapped out the Grizaye pencils for my polychromos and continued on from there. Now I'm just going back into the center of the flower and the side of the petals with the polychromos just so I can further finish those areas. All right, now I'm just coloring in the bottom parts of the petals, and this part was a lot of fun because I really enjoyed coloring in those little raindrops, and I thought this was very helpful for someone that is wanting to learn how to do those. They can really study what they look like in the black and white value scale and practice making them look nicely rendered. I thought that was really cool. I'm just about finished with the peony, and so I'm just kind of going over some areas and just adding more layers and more depth with my colors. My thoughts on using this paper with a polychromos. I think it feels good. I can get more layers with the polychromos than I could with the Grizaye pencils. Still not as many layers as I really thought I would be able to with this paper. It's just too smooth and I can't get enough layers to get the amount of depth that I would need to create a hyper-realistic picture. Now moving on to the small bud to the left of the peony, and this was just a really fun little section to do. It was one of the ones I couldn't quite wait to get to. I just love the colors and how the light sort of shines through and gives that back glow. It was a lot of fun to color. Now I'm just taking a break from that little bud, and I just wanted to play around more with the background and the bokeh effect. I think this part was really fun. I've never done any bokeh effect on my own paintings, so just being able to do this and kind of learn a little bit on technique on how it's done, that was actually very helpful for me. Didn't feel very stressed about getting it perfect because it's such a blurry background, so you could kind of be a little bit more sloppy with your application of the pencils, and you didn't have to be too strict. But you know, I think the important part was for me just to get enough layers to get a good blend to make it just look nicely saturated. I do wish that there were darker colors included with the set, because I think there was a lot more darker values, and I really sort of struggled using combinations of all the colors to create a mixture of my own black, essentially. With the limited palette that this kit came with, I was very restricted on the value scale that I could create. After working this picture for a while, I was curious as to what the video had to tell me. So I went online to their website and I did purchase the 2-hour tutorial by Carissa Lee for this particular Grizaye kit. It was really nice to see somebody go through the whole process through that. I think it's a great idea to have a video tutorial to accompany these kits. I don't think the price point was bad. It was about $20 to purchase the video, and I can watch it, you know, forever. And she gave a lot of really good tips on different ways to create this artwork. So I think anybody that is working one of these and they need a little extra help, it might be worth getting one of the videos to watch as well. So now I'm getting into doing the leaves at the bottom. It was really challenging because I'm not able to get the blending and the layers that I'm accustomed to with using other papers. I'm used to being able to put texture on top of gradient layers. So with this paper, you can't do that. You really need to focus on putting your details in the spot where they belong immediately from the get-go and putting them side by side versus layering them on. I mean, you can do a little bit, but this paper just really doesn't like to take a lot of layers, and doing lights over darks also doesn't really work well with this paper as it does with more textured paper. So I'm gonna sub out my polychromos for my luminance because I want to see how they perform on this paper and with this type of drawing. They are a little bit more opaque of a consistency than the polychromos. So it was a little bit harder to be able to see the underlying value. So I relied more heavily on the reference photo, but these worked pretty well. You know, I think if you were in the market for pencils, you know, I think either the polychromos or the luminance would be a great choice for doing these. So again, I'm just going in through all the dark areas with the dark green color. And then I am layering on the lime green, and I'm just using small circular motions with a light hand. So I'm nearing the last section of this drawing, and I went back to the Grizaye pencils now that I have gotten a lot more comfortable with the paper, and I just wanted to go back and give the pencils another try just to see if maybe I just wasn't used to the paper or maybe I was doing something wrong, but I wanted to give them one more college try just to see if they performed any better. And same thing, I'm still not really happy with the pencils. They still don't layer that well. They don't blend very well. I honestly can't recommend the Grizaye pencils. I don't think they're very good, but they are a budget-friendly pencil. However, I can think of some other ways that would be more beneficial to a beginner. I tested Prismacolor against these off camera, and the Prismacolors, which are about the same price point as the Grizaye pencils, they actually performed a lot better than the Grizaye pencils. So if you're going to spend, $50 on a box of Grizaye pencils, you could take that same amount of money and go and purchase a box of Prismacolors and get a much better result. Or another way is you could take whatever budget you have and go buy some open stock pencils from some of the artist grade brands, and that will also give you a much better result, even though you may not be able to have as many, but having a better quality pencil will definitely help you further along in your color pencil journey. So as we get into my concluding statement, I do want to reiterate that I use a completely different technique than what this Grizaye Art Kit teaches. I use different paper, I use different pencils, and I use different techniques. So I do have a bias. Okay, so here are my personal thoughts as an experienced artist. I thought the Grizaye Kit excelled as an entertainment coloring kit. It included a step-by-step guide that gave me a brief summary on how to start and where to place my colors. It gave me some practice with using a new type of paper and observing complex details in grayscale and in color. I especially love the quality of the reference photo given and that it was royalty free. Unfortunately, the kit had more drawbacks than I had expected. The paper included was way too smooth for me to layer the pencils on, and I was forced to add my details from the start rather than after my gradient layers. The pencils being more budget quality really hindered my ability to blend and layer as well. Felt like there was a lot of filler in the makeup of the pigment content, which is typical of budget-friendly art supplies, and that really hindered how the end result was. I also felt the color palette was too limited, as the dark colors provided were not dark enough to achieve a wide enough value range and essentially losing much needed contrast. I also felt the step-by-step guide could have included more detailed instructions, as I second-guessed myself a few times where certain colors were supposed to go. I eventually stopped reading and just worked from the reference photo, as that was just much easier to copy what I see, but I could see how that could be confusing for beginners. And lastly, even though Grizaye gives permission to use the photos and sell your finished work royalty-free, I don't think it's appropriate for professionals to sell this finished product as a high-dollar fine art drawing piece. This drawing took me about 8 to 10 hours, which I feel my time would have been better spent on creating an original artwork that I could go on to sell and compete with. For leisure coloring, I would opt for a more minimalistic coloring page where there's not a lot of texture. That way I can have the creative freedom to create my own texture, light source, and gradient layers. So here are also some comments from one of my art students that I brought this kit to. I wanted to see how they felt about it, and I didn't tell them anything about the kit itself. I just let them kind of go in and let them experience it like I did. And here is what one of my students commented on. She found the Grizaye kit to be similar to a paint by number. She disliked the paper quality that limited her layering. The grayscale underpainting, she said, was helpful to kind of visualize and be able to see where the values belong. But the kit lacked clear instructions on color picking and color placement. The step-by-step instructions also talk about using a colorless blender quite a bit, and she was very disappointed that the kit did not include one of those. She felt that they could have taken an extra step to include one of them. She felt the project was also overwhelming for a beginner. The Pink Peony kit is a very busy composition, and she suggests that the Grizaye could offer some different difficulty levels and also include better instructions. And maybe adding a section for art terminology. She was confused as to what bokeh meant, and she didn't understand what pushing the colors meant as well. We both had realized that there wasn't a lot of talking points in the directions as to what value was. I think adding some more definitions about what value is, how to control value, how to create texture, color theory. I think if the aim is to teach realism, you need to talk about those things. Or you could develop different Grizaye kits specifically teaching different parts of the foundations of art. My overall impression, the Grizaye Art Kit can be a fun and relaxing option for casual artists who want to just kind of practice some of their basic coloring skills, color blocking, and just observing what it is they're coloring. However, for professional artists or those seeking to develop a broader skill set using color pencils to layer gradients, textures, and learning values, this kit does fall short. I'm certainly looking forward to see where Grizaye goes with their art kits. There's definitely a lot of potential here, and maybe one day I'll be able to use one of these kits in one of my workshops or private art lessons. I want to say a big thank you to Grizaye for sending me this product to try out. I love your passion for wanting to inspire artists of all levels to create and enjoy colored pencils. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.